Now for Windows users out there, as I mentioned earlier, I recommend WAMP instead of XAMPP. I find that WAMP works really nicely and everything sets up quite easily. I'm not showing the WAMP install process because it really is easy. I would recommend installing WAMP on your C drive so it's easy to find. And if you look here, I have installed it on CWAMP. And you can get all of these files that allows WAMP to do its thing. The key thing I want to point out is all your PHP files and your index files will go in the www directory here. So you pop that open, and this is where you drop in your PHP and HTML files and so forth. Again, in WAMP it's the www folder, and in XAMPP it's the htdocs folder. It's in terms of where you want to deposit your PHP files. And just in case you guys have forgotten, the reason it's important that if you're doing your PHP work on your own machine, that you have to have a web server with PHP installed to view your PHP pages. If you recall, it's because you need that PHP engine to process your PHP pages. If you just try to view your PHP pages in the browser straight, so if you had a PHP page in, let's say it's in the your CWAMP www folder, and you just tried to view this directly with the browser is just going to ask you whether or not you want to download this file, because it's a PHP page and the browser knows that it can't actually read the page directly. So again, when you want to view your PHP pages processed, you need to run the PHP page through the server. I cover this in another video. I'm going to end this video by showing the PHP info function at work on my installation of WAMP on my local machine. You can do this on your own installation of WAMP or XAMPP if you're on Mac or Linux, or you can simply upload a PHP page with the PHP info function written in. We'll do that right now. To test that the local installation, WAMP installation of Apache and PHP is working, I created a PHP file I called kill.php. I'm going to pop it open with WordPad so you can see the code. Here it is, as simple as you can get in terms of an HTML page, except we have a PHP block of code here, which I'm going to explain. Well, you know what? I'll give you a quick run through right now. This is standard HTML, and I assume that you guys are aware of this. PHP code blocks always begin with this, the angled brackets, the question mark, and the text PHP. Notice there's no space here, it's touching. And then it always ends with the question mark and the angled brackets. Again, no space here, it's always touching. Anything that falls in between this opening PHP tag, if you want to call it, and this closing tag is PHP code. So when this PHP page, in this case kill.php, is sent to the PHP engine to process, the PHP engine will print out this stuff as it would normally do. But when it hits the PHP code blocks, it knows to actually process this code here. In this case, we have one simple built-in PHP function. Again, I'm jumping ahead here, but a PHP function is simply mini program in a program, if you will. A function is a convenient way to package up a bunch of code, in this case a bunch of PHP code, that does something. Sometimes you get built-in functions that will count how many letters in a word. Sometimes you have PHP functions that will do math calculations. Some PHP functions will actually connect to a MySQL database. This particular built-in PHP function displays information about the web server that PHP happens to be running on and the computer itself, and it tells you a whole bunch of information about the PHP version that's running. So that's why it's called PHP info. So I'm going to just close this up. I'll save it, close it up, and we'll run this page now through the web server, and we'll see what it looks like. Here we go. Again, we're at the 127.0.0.1 address, which is the universally accepted local address of a local web server. We covered that earlier on. Some people would call this localhost. It will do the same thing as in localhost. And you get the same page. So if you look back in my directory, I have kill.php in the root of the www folder of my WAMP installation. So I'm just going to type in kill.php, hit enter, and here we go. This is the output of that PHP info function. All the stuff that we're seeing here gives me all kinds of information about what all the configurations of PHP. Then we got all the Apache configurations, the Apache environment, etc. There's all kinds of information, as you can see. And all that information was generated from this one little method call or function call, PHP info. Sometimes you hear me use the word method as opposed to function. Essentially, methods are functions and functions are methods. There's a slight nuance between the two, but that's really getting into nerd details that has really no impact in terms of your work. But in PHP, they call these things functions. So I'm going to refer to them as functions. There'll be a lot more discussions about PHP functions, all the different ones that are built in, how you can build your own, how you can identify them in code easily, and what you can do with them in the core videos. Okay, we've set up our computers with either XAMPP or WAMP if we want to test our PHP code on our own machines, or you've created that PHP page with the PHP info function and uploaded to your web server to make sure that your web server supports PHP, because if you see this, you know PHP is running because it takes the PHP engine to process and to spit out all this information for us. So with that covered, we can actually jump into learning actual PHP code.